The alarm bells rang across the council station for the third time this week. Ambassador Korvac ran down the metal halls as fast as his forelegs could carry him. His blue skin was covered in sweat. Another star system had fallen to the enemy. The council chamber was full of angry voices when he arrived. Representatives from dozens of alien species were shouting at each other. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking crystals. All of them were scared. 7 more worlds are gone, Korvac announced. The room went quiet. The Zephyrian horde destroyed everything. 3 billion people died in 6 hours. Prime Counselor Thane stood up slowly. His crystal body made a soft singing sound as he moved. How many ships did we lose trying to help them? All of them, sir. 200 vessels. The horde adapted to our weapons in minutes. They learned our battle plans before we could use them. Senator Lyra from the Pacifican Collective slammed her tentacle on the table. This is impossible. We have fought wars for thousands of years. Our technology is the best in the galaxy. How can these monsters keep winning? Because they are not like us, said General Voss from the warrior planet Kraton. His red eyes glowed with anger. They do not just fight. They learn. They become better than us at our own tactics. Every time we attack, they steal our ideas and use them against us. Thane looked around the room. Every face showed the same thing. Fear. The Zephyrian horde had been destroying worlds for 300 years. They had never lost a single battle. Their bioships could eat metal and grow bigger. Their soldiers could change their bodies to fight any weapon. They were like a disease that spread across space. We need new ideas, Thane said. Something they have never seen before. What about the Deltrian mind bombs? Asked Commander Zek. Or the Altarian phase cannons? They adapted to both last month, Korvac replied. The horde learns everything we try. They become immune to our weapons faster than we can build them. The room fell silent again. Everyone was thinking the same thing. They were going to lose. The greatest alliance in galactic history was about to be destroyed by monsters from the dark space between stars. Then Thane spoke again. His voice was very quiet. There is one option we have not tried. What option? Senator Lyra asked. The humans. Every being in the room made a sound of shock. Some gasped, others hissed, and a few actually stepped backward. Talking about humans was like talking about a dangerous animal. You cannot be serious, said General Voss. Humans are chaos. They destroy everything they touch. That is exactly the point, Thane replied. We have tried order. We have tried logic. We have tried the best minds in the galaxy. All of our careful plans have failed. Maybe we need chaos. Ambassador Korvac shook his head. Sir, humans have been banned from leaving their solar system for good reasons. They turn every tool into a weapon. They fight wars over colors and imaginary lines. They are violent beyond understanding. They are also survivors, Thane said. 7 different alien species have made contact with Earth. All 7 times the humans survived first contact. Most primitive species die from the shock of learning they are not alone. Humans ask for bigger guns. Senator Lyra's tentacles twisted with worry. But they have no faster-than-light travel. They have no energy shields. Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours. And yet they built nuclear weapons before they reached their own moon, General Voss pointed out. Their first instinct was to find new ways to kill each other. What kind of species does that? A species that might think like the Horde, Thane answered. The Zephyrians adapt because they understand logic and patterns. They cannot adapt to something that makes no sense. Humans specialize in making no sense. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted to try one more conventional attack. Others suggested hiding in the far rim and hoping the Horde would pass them by. A few even talked about surrender, but in the end, fear won. Fear and desperation. The vote was close. 47 species voted yes. 41 voted no. 6 abstained. It was enough. Signal is sent, announced the communication officer 3 hours later. The humans have received our message. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee on Luna Station when the transmission arrived. The message was simple but strange. An alien alliance was offering humanity full citizenship in galactic society. The price was simple too. Destroy an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. Jake read the message 3 times. Then he called his second officer. Lisa, get Admiral Brooks on the line. Commander Lisa Hayes looked up from her screen. What is it, Captain? We just got invited to the biggest war in galactic history. Lisa raised an eyebrow. And our answer? Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. Tell the Admiral we accept. Then start preparing the fleet. Which ships, sir? All of them. Within hours, every human military base was buzzing with activity. Soldiers who had been training for theoretical alien contact were suddenly facing the real thing. Engineers began stripping weapons from mothballed warships. Scientists started studying alien technology that had been sitting in storage for decades. Admiral Kate Brooks stood in the command center watching the controlled chaos around her. Humans were good at two things above all others: surviving and fighting. They were about to do both on a scale nobody had ever imagined. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Ryan Clark from the communications station, "the aliens are sending technical specifications for their weapons and ship designs." "Good. Get them to our engineers immediately." "There is one more thing, Admiral. They are also sending warnings about human psychological profiles being too unstable for space warfare." Brooks laughed. It was a hard sound. "Ryan, tell them we received their warning. Then tell them we disagree." "What should I say we plan to do instead?" Brooks looked out at the stars through the station's main window. Somewhere out there an enemy was waiting. An enemy that had destroyed civilizations older than human history. An enemy that learned and adapted to everything. Tell them we plan to win. The Galactic Council had asked for a weapon. They thought they were getting desperate soldiers with primitive technology. What they were actually getting was something far more dangerous. They were getting humans who had been told there was a fight worth winning. Admiral Kate Brooks walked through the shipyard and smiled. 3 weeks ago, the UES Vengeance had been a basic transport ship. Now it bristled with weapons that should not have fit on something so small. Human engineers had a gift for making things work that should not work. "Ma'am, the alien technical advisors are complaining again," said Commander Lisa Hayes as she caught up with the Admiral. "What about this time? They say we have violated 18 safety protocols and 43 design standards. They also say our weapon modifications will probably explode." Brooks kept walking. "Have they exploded yet?" "No, ma'am. In fact, they are working better than the original designs." "Then tell the advisors to file their complaints in writing. We will read them after we win the war." The human fleet was ready to launch. 50 ships that looked nothing like they had 3 weeks ago. Every vessel had been rebuilt with alien technology that human minds had somehow improved. The galactic allies had expected humans to take months learning their systems. Instead, humanity had taken their weapons and made them deadlier. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Defiance. His crew was busy running final checks on systems that half of them did not fully understand. But that had never stopped humans before. "Sir, we are getting another message from the Altarian Fleet Commander," said his communications officer, Ryan Clark. "He wants to coordinate our attack patterns with his battle group." "What did you tell him?" "That we would coordinate after we see what the enemy does." Jake nodded. The aliens wanted to plan every detail of the coming battle. They had charts and graphs and computer models that predicted exactly how the fight would go. Humans preferred to figure things out as they happened. "Captain Admiral Brooks is broadcasting to all ships," Ryan announced. Brooks's voice filled the bridge. "This is Admiral Brooks to all human vessels. In 30 minutes, we jumped to the Kepler system. 3 billion Centaurian colonists died there last week. The Zephyrian horde wiped out everything in 6 hours. Jake looked at his crew. Every face was grim but determined. "Our alien allies have been fighting this enemy for 300 years, Brooks continued. "They have lost every single battle. They use the same tactics their ancestors used 1,000 years ago. They follow the same rules of war that have governed galactic conflict since before humans discovered fire." The Admiral paused. When she spoke again, her voice was harder. "The aliens called us here because their way of fighting does not work. They expect us to follow their rules, use their tactics, fight their kind of war. They are about to learn why Earth has never been conquered." The jump to Kepler was rough. Human faster-than-light technology was new and unstable. Half the fleet arrived sick from the transition. But they arrived ready to fight. The Kepler system was a graveyard. Broken space stations drifted between the planets. Debris from Centaurian ships formed clouds of twisted metal. And in the center of it all were the Zephyrian bioships. They looked like giant insects made of black metal and living tissue. Some were the size of cities. They moved through space like predators hunting prey. When they detected the human fleet, they began to change shape. "Sir, the enemy vessels are adapting their configuration," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster from the tactical station. "They are forming up in a defensive pattern we have never seen before. Good, said Jake. That means they do not know what we are going to do either. The alien ships that had come with the humans hung back. Their commanders were waiting to see how the humans would attack before committing their forces. It was the smart thing to do. It was also exactly what the Zephyrians expected. Brooks ordered the attack differently. All ships execute Chaos Protocol 1. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for centuries. The human fleet did not form up in any recognizable pattern. Instead, every ship seemed to be following its own plan. Some attacked head-on, others came from the sides. A few actually flew underneath the enemy formation. The Zephyrian bioships tried to adapt, but they could not predict what the humans would do next because the humans were not following any logical plan. Lieutenant Colonel Dan Parker led the first ground assault on Kepler Prime. His Marines moved through the ruined cities like they had been born for this fight. Where other species tried to minimize damage, humans embraced it. They used the rubble as weapons. They turned the enemy's own biotechnology against them. Sir, the Zephyrian ground forces are changing tactics every 15 minutes, reported Sergeant Amy Foster, as they pushed through what used to be a shopping district. They keep trying new approaches. Let them, Parker said as he rigged another improvised bomb. The more they change, the more confused they get. We have been fighting wars like this for thousands of years. The battle for Kepler Prime was ugly. Human soldiers fought in ways that horrified their alien allies. They used dirty tricks, broke rules of engagement, and treated every piece of debris as a potential weapon. When they ran out of ammunition, they used rocks. When they ran out of rocks, they used their fists. But it worked. For the first time in 300 years, the Zephyrian horde was forced to retreat. Not a tactical withdrawal, not a strategic repositioning. An actual retreat. The alien fleet commanders could not believe it. "How did you do it?" asked Admiral Korvac over the communication channel. "We fought dirty," Brooks replied. "The Zephyrians adapt to everything they encounter, but they can only adapt to things that make sense. We specialize in things that do not make sense." News of the victory spread across the galaxy in hours. Every species that had lost family to the horde felt something they had not felt in centuries. Hope. But Brooks knew this was just the beginning. The real war was about to start. The Zephyrian response came faster than expected. Within 2 weeks, they launched attacks on 12 human positions simultaneously, but this time humanity was ready. Colonel Sam Mitchell discovered the key during the siege of Proxima Station. "They adapt to everything," he explained to his staff. "Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy. But there is a flaw." "What flaw?" asked Captain Nina Torres. "They can only adapt to what they have seen before. They need examples to copy. If we never repeat ourselves, they cannot learn." What followed was the strangest military campaign in galactic history. Human forces began abandoning successful tactics the moment they worked. They armed merchant ships with military weapons and sent them on random missions. They used children's toys as the basis for new weapons. They recruited artists and comedians to help plan battles. The Zephyrians, who had perfected the art of adaptation over millennia, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to stay the same long enough to be understood. Dr. Elena Rodriguez made the breakthrough that changed everything. Working from a secret lab on Mars, she discovered why the Zephyrians could not adapt to humans. "They are not just copying our technology," she told the Joint Command staff. "They are trying to copy us. Our psychology, our thinking patterns, our entire approach to problem solving. But they cannot do it." "Why not?" asked Admiral Brooks. "Because we are not one thing. Every other species they have fought was basically uniform. Same psychology, same culture, same way of thinking. But humans are chaos that learn to use tools. We fight differently than other species, and we fight differently than each other." Brooks saw the implications immediately. "So we make sure every unit thinks differently." "Exactly. Turn our diversity into our primary weapon." The new doctrine spread through human forces like wildfire. Every commander was ordered to develop their own unique fighting style. No two units would use the same tactics. No battle plan would resemble any previous engagement. The Zephyrians began making their first real mistakes. 6 months into the war, something impossible was happening. The Zephyrian horde was losing. General Alex Turner watched the tactical display from his command ship and shook his head in amazement. Red markers showed horde positions retreating across 17 different star systems. For 300 years, those markers had only moved forward. "Sir," Intelligence reports that the enemy is showing signs of confusion, said his aide, Captain Maria Santos. Their command structure appears to be struggling. Struggling how? They keep trying to predict our next move, but our units are too different from each other. The Horde's adaptation protocols are overloading. Turner smiled grimly. The controlled chaos protocol was working better than anyone had hoped. Every human unit was fighting like a different species entirely. Navy SEALs used underwater tactics in space battles. Air Force pilots flew like ancient cavalry charges. Marine units fought like urban street gangs. The aliens had wanted a weapon. What they got was an army that could not even predict itself. General, we are receiving the final approach vectors for the assault on the Central Nexus, reported Lieutenant Colonel Dan Parker from the communication station. Turner looked at the massive bioship on his screen. The Zephyrian Command Nexus was the size of a small moon. It was the brain of the entire Horde, a living computer that coordinated millions of smaller bioships across the galaxy. How many different units do we have for this assault? Turner asked. 37 different tactical groups, sir, each one trained in completely different fighting methods. Good. The more confused we make them, the better. The assault force was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Traditional human military units fought alongside groups that had been trained by historians, anthropologists, and even game designers. Some units used tactics borrowed from ancient Earth civilizations. Others had developed completely new approaches to combat. Captain Tom Bradley led a unit that specialized in three-dimensional urban warfare. His soldiers had trained by fighting in destroyed cities and abandoned space stations. They moved through the enemy bioship like it was just another ruined building, ma'am. The ship's neural pathways are showing unusual activity, he reported to Admiral Brooks aboard the command vessel. Unusual how? It appears to be trying to think like us, ma'am. Like humans. But something is going wrong. The bioship's interior was a nightmare of living corridors and pulsing walls. The Zephyrian Nexus was not just a ship. It was a creature. A massive brain that could think faster than any computer and adapt to any threat. But it had never encountered anything like humans before. Sergeant Amy Foster led her squad through a section that looked like the inside of a giant heart. The walls pulsed with alien thoughts, and strange lights flickered in patterns that hurt to look at. Sarge, the readings are going crazy, said Private Jake Collins. It is like the ship is having some kind of breakdown. Good, Foster replied as she placed another explosive charge. Let it think about that. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the assault from her research station on Mars. Her instruments were tracking the bioship's neural activity, and what she saw amazed her. Admiral, the Nexus is attempting to mirror human cognitive patterns, she reported to Brooks. But it cannot handle the contradictions. What contradictions? Humans think in ways that should not work together. We are logical and emotional, aggressive and cooperative, creative and destructive all at the same time. The Nexus is trying to think like all humans simultaneously. Brooks understood immediately. It is trying to adapt to our entire species at once. Exactly. And human psychology is so diverse that no single mind can contain all of it. The Nexus is essentially giving itself a nervous breakdown. The assault continued for 18 hours. Human units poured through the bioship using tactics that ranged from ancient siege warfare to experimental zero-gravity combat techniques. They played loud music that disrupted the ship's neural networks. They used psychological warfare that included comedy routines and poetry readings. The Zephyrian defenders tried to adapt, but every time they figured out one human unit, 3 more appeared using completely different methods. Sir, we have reached the central core, reported Captain Bradley. But something strange is happening. What kind of strange? Turner asked. The bioship is not fighting back anymore. It is just sitting there. Turner looked at his screens in confusion. The massive Nexus had stopped all defensive actions. Its weapons were silent. Its biomechanical defenders had gone inactive. Dr. Rodriguez, what are your readings showing? Neural activity is approaching 0, General. The Nexus appears to be shutting down. Is it dead? Not dead, sir. Catatonic. It tried to think like humans and broke its own mind. The bioship's collapse was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Instead of explosions or fires, it simply stopped. The massive organism hung motionless in space as its surface slowly turned gray. When human soldiers reached the central core, they found something that would haunt their dreams for years. The Zephyrian Nexus had been a single vast brain, but now it was fragmenting. Pieces of its consciousness were scattered like broken glass. "Sir, we are getting readings from throughout the Horde fleet," reported Maria Santos. "All bioships are showing similar neural disruption." Turner watched as red markers across the galaxy began winking out. Not destroyed, just stopped. "The entire Horde is connected to the Nexus," Rodriguez explained. "When it suffered psychological collapse, the effect spread through their entire network. The war was over. Not through military defeat, but through something far stranger. Humanity had won by being too confusing to understand, but victory came with unexpected consequences." As news of the Horde's defeat spread, the galaxy's attitude toward humanity began to change. "They destroyed an enemy we could not even slow down," Counselor Thane told his aide privately. "If they can do that to the Horde, what could they do to us?" Fear was replacing gratitude across the allied species. The same chaotic nature that had defeated the Zephyrians now seemed like a threat to galactic peace, Admiral. Brooks received the first hints of trouble when alien fleet commanders began refusing to work with human units. "They say we are too unpredictable to coordinate with," reported Commander Hayes. "They want us to follow standard galactic military protocols, and if we refuse, then they want us to return to Earth immediately after the war ends." Brooks looked out at the stars and realized that humanity's real fight was just beginning. They had proven they could destroy the galaxy's greatest threat. Now they had to prove they could be trusted with that power. The weapon called human had won the war, but weapons, the galaxy was learning, were dangerous to everyone around them. 1 year after the fall of the Zephyrian Horde, the galaxy was not celebrating. It was arguing. Ambassador Claire Watson sat in the council chambers listening to Senator Lyra explain why humanity needed to be contained. The Pacifican Collective had prepared a long speech about the dangers of uncontrolled human expansion. "They have proven they can destroy anything," Lyra said, her tentacles waving for emphasis. "The question now is whether they can build anything without breaking it." Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species nodded in agreement. The same aliens who had begged for human help now seemed afraid of their saviors. Watson looked at the datapad in her hands. Intelligence reports showed human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy. Officially, they were there for defensive purposes. Unofficially, they served as a reminder of what humans could do. "The proposal before us is simple," continued Counselor Thane. "Humanity returns to their home system. In exchange, they keep full rights to any technology they developed during the war." It was a polite way of saying, "Go home before we make you go home." General Jake Morrison watched the proceedings from the observation deck. He had been promoted twice since the war ended, but today he felt like a soldier surrounded by politicians. "Think they will vote for it?" asked Admiral Brooks, who stood beside him. "Probably," Morrison replied. "Fear makes people do stupid things. And if they do vote for containment," Morrison smiled, but there was no humor in it, "then they will learn something new about humans." The debate went on for hours. Species after species stood up to explain why humanity was too dangerous to be allowed free access to galactic space. They had statistics about human aggression levels. They had psychological profiles that painted humans as barely controlled chaos. But they also had something else. They had fear. "The Zephyrian Horde was predictable," said General Voss from the warrior planet Kraton. "They wanted to conquer and consume. We understood their goals. But humans? Nobody knows what humans really want." Ambassador Watson finally stood to speak. The chamber went quiet. "You are right," she said. "Nobody knows what humans want because we do not all want the same thing. That diversity you fear so much, it is what saved you." She gestured to the display screens around the chamber. Images appeared showing human-alien colonies, joint research stations, and mixed crews aboard exploration vessels. 6 months ago, humanity began the Babel Project. Full cultural and technological exchange with any species that desires it. Not conquest, not domination, partnership. The images showed humans and aliens working side by side. Human creativity combined with alien knowledge to solve problems neither could handle alone. New technologies that blended human chaos with alien order. "You called us a weapon," Watson continued. "You were right. But you forgot the most important thing about weapons. They belong to whoever wields them," Senator Lyra interrupted. "That is exactly what we are afraid of. Weapons that think for themselves." "Then stop thinking of us as weapons," Watson replied. "Start thinking of us as partners." The vote was scheduled for the next day, but everyone knew how it would go. Fear was winning over hope. That night, Morrison met with his senior staff in the human embassy. The building was surrounded by alien security forces, officially for protection. Everyone knew the real reason. "Sir, we are getting reports from human fleets across the galaxy," said Colonel Sam Mitchell. "Alien forces are taking defensive positions around our ships." "They are not attacking?" asked Captain Nina Torres. "Not yet. But they are clearly preparing for something." Morrison looked at the star map on the wall. Human vessels were spread across dozens of systems, each one now surrounded by nervous alien fleets. "Admiral, what is the status of our special projects?" Brooks consulted her datapad. "Project Lighthouse is complete. Project Babel has expanded to include 17 species. Project Catalyst is ahead of schedule." "Good. If they vote for containment tomorrow, we implement all three simultaneously." "Sir, that could be seen as an act of aggression," warned Mitchell. "Could be," Morrison agreed, "but it could also be seen as an act of partnership. Depends on how they choose to interpret it." The next morning, the vote went exactly as expected. 49 species voted for human containment. 32 voted against. 7 abstained. Watson stood to deliver humanity's response. "The proposal to restrict human expansion is denied," she said calmly. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several representatives demanded to know by what authority humans could refuse a council decision. "By the authority you gave us when you asked us to save the galaxy," Watson replied. "We fulfilled our part of the bargain. We destroyed the Horde, now we claim our payment." "Your payment was galactic citizenship," Thane said, "not galactic dominance. We agree. Which is why we offer you a choice." The display screens around the chamber lit up with new images. Human ships throughout the galaxy were broadcasting the same message simultaneously. "Project Lighthouse," Watson announced. "Complete technological specifications for faster-than-light communication, advanced medical techniques, and energy production methods. Available free to any species that requests it." The chamber fell silent. The technologies being offered were worth centuries of research. "Project Babel continues our cultural exchange programs. Any species can send representatives to live and work alongside humans. Learn our methods, teach us yours." More images appeared. Alien scientists working in human laboratories. Human artists collaborating with alien musicians. Children of different species playing together on colony worlds. "And Project Catalyst," Watson said with a slight smile. "Joint exploration missions to uncharted regions of space. Human creativity and alien wisdom working together to discover what lies beyond the edge of known space." The offer was brilliant in its simplicity. Humanity was not demanding anything. They were offering everything. "You can fear what you cannot understand," Watson concluded, "or you can benefit from what makes us different. The choice is yours." The second vote was very different from the first. Species that had voted for containment found themselves reconsidering. The technologies being offered could advance their civilizations by centuries. But there was something else. Something that took longer to understand. "They are not trying to control us," Counselor Thane realized during a private meeting with his advisors. "They are trying to make us like them." "What do you mean?" "Diverse, unpredictable, creative. They want to turn the entire galaxy into a collection of unique species working together instead of a uniform alliance following the same rules." It was a terrifying thought. And also an exciting one. The final vote was closer than anyone expected. Partnership won by just 3 votes. That evening, Morrison and Brooks met in the embassy garden. Earth plants grew alongside alien flowers in a display that should not have worked, but somehow did. "Think they will ever trust us?" Brooks asked. Morrison shrugged. "Trust is earned. But respect? Fear teaches respect faster than friendship. And if they decide we are too dangerous anyway?" Morrison looked up at the alien stars above them. "Then they will learn the other thing about weapons, Kate. The dangerous ones are the ones that choose their own targets." Human laughter drifted from the embassy windows, mixing with alien music from the street beyond. The sound was strange but pleasant. Like everything else humans touched, it was chaos that somehow worked. The weapon called human had chosen to become something else entirely, a catalyst for change in a galaxy that had followed the same patterns for thousands of years. Whether that change would be good or bad remained to be seen. But one thing was certain, the galaxy would never be the same. 5 years had passed since the Zephyrian War ended. The galaxy looked very different now. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of New Horizons Station, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the massive spaceport. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft in a dance of organized chaos that somehow never resulted in collisions. "Doctor, your report is ready for publication," said her assistant, Dr. Kevin Park. "The Galactic Academic Council has approved it for distribution to all member species." Rodriguez took the datapad and read the title page. "On the Weaponization of Chaos, How Humanity's Greatest Weakness Became the Galaxy's Greatest Strength." It had taken 5 years to understand what had really happened during the war. The Zephyrians had not lost because humans were better soldiers. They had lost because humans were better at being unpredictable. "Any word from the Altarian delegation?" Rodriguez asked. "They want to establish 3 more joint research facilities. The Pacifican Collective is asking for help with their exploration program, and the Kraton Warrior Council wants human advisors for their military academy." Rodriguez smiled. The same species that had feared human chaos now wanted to learn from it. Captain Lisa Hayes walked through the corridors of the UES Explorer, humanity's newest deep space vessel. Her crew included members from 12 different species, all working together to map unknown regions of space. "Captain, we are approaching the target system," reported her navigator, Ensign David Chen. "Long-range sensors show at least 4 planets in the habitable zone. Any signs of intelligent life?" "Uncertain. The readings are unusual." Hayes moved to the science station where her chief science officer, a crystalline being named Korth, was analyzing the data. "The energy signatures do not match any known technology," Korth said in his singing voice. "They appear to be biological in nature but highly organized." "Could be another hive mind species," suggested Commander Ryan Miller, Hayes's human second-in-command. "Or maybe something completely new," Hayes nodded. "First contact situations were always delicate, but humanity had developed new protocols for dealing with unknown species. The key was to expect the unexpected and be ready to adapt quickly. Take us in slowly, full diplomatic protocols." Back on New Horizons Station, Ambassador Claire Watson was dealing with a different kind of first contact. The Zephyrian survivors had finally agreed to meet with galactic representatives. The creature that floated in the specially designed chamber looked nothing like the massive bioships humanity had fought. It was small, almost fragile, with transparent skin that showed its internal organs. "I am Zeph Prime," it said through the translation device. "I speak for the remnants of my people." Watson studied the being carefully. Intelligence reports suggested that fewer than 1,000 Zephyrians had survived the collapse of their collective consciousness. They had been living in isolation for 5 years, trying to rebuild their shattered society. "What do you want from us?" Watson asked. "To understand," Zeph Prime replied. "We adapted to every enemy we encountered for 3,000 years. We conquered species more advanced than ourselves. Yet humans defeated us without destroying a single major bioship. How?" Watson looked at the creature that had once been part of an unstoppable war machine. "Because you tried to become like us, and humans cannot even become like each other." "Explain." "Your people were a collective consciousness. You thought with one mind, acted with one purpose. When you encountered other species, you learned their patterns and became better versions of them. But humans do not have patterns. We have chaos." Zeph Prime's organs pulsed with what the translation device interpreted as confusion. "Chaos cannot be superior to order." "It can when order becomes predictable," Watson replied. "Your collective mind could not handle human diversity because we are not one thing. We are millions of different approaches to existence, all somehow working together." The meeting continued for hours. Zeph Prime wanted to understand how humanity had survived their own chaotic nature without destroying themselves. Watson tried to explain concepts like democracy, free will, and creative disagreement to a being that had never experienced individual thought. Meanwhile, on the edge of known space, Captain Hayes was making a discovery that would change everything again. "Captain, you need to see this," called Ensign Chen from the communications station. Hayes moved to his position and looked at the display. Radio signals were coming from the 4th planet, but they were unlike anything in the galactic database. "The patterns are completely random," reported Korth. "No mathematical structure, no logical progression, No recognizable information encoding. Could it be natural phenomena? Asked Commander Miller. The signals are clearly artificial, Korth replied. But they make no sense. It is as if someone is broadcasting pure chaos. Hayes felt a chill run down her spine. How long have these signals been transmitting? Based on their degradation, approximately 300 years. 300 years. The same time the Zephyrian horde had begun their conquest of the galaxy. Korth, run a comparison analysis between these signals and human neural activity patterns. The crystalline being worked for several minutes before looking up in shock. Captain, the signals match human brainwave patterns almost exactly, but they are coming from a species that should have no knowledge of human biology. Hayes realized what they had found. Another species like humanity. Another collection of chaotic minds that had somehow learned to work together. Send a message to Admiral Brooks immediately, she ordered. Tell her we have found the reason the Zephyrians started their expansion 300 years ago. What reason is that, Captain? Hayes looked at the planet on the screen and smiled grimly. They were running away from something that confused them even more than we do. The discovery of the Kythera, as they came to be known, changed humanity's position in the galaxy once again. Suddenly, humans were not the most chaotic species in known space. They were just the most recent example of chaos learning to use tools. General Morrison, now Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, met with the Galactic Council to discuss the implications. There may be dozens of species like us scattered across the galaxy, he explained to the assembled representatives. The Zephyrians were not just conquerors. They were explorers seeking order in a universe full of chaos. What does this mean for galactic security? Asked Counselor Thane. It means we stop thinking of chaos as something to be contained, Morrison replied, and start thinking of it as something to be celebrated. The council session ended with the announcement of the Diversity Initiative, a galaxy-wide program to seek out and contact species that did not fit standard patterns of development. Dr. Rodriguez published her final paper on the subject 6 months later. The conclusion became required reading at schools across 17 different species. The greatest threat to galactic civilization was not the Zephyrian horde, it was our own desire for predictability. We created a universe where everything followed the same rules, thought the same thoughts, and solved problems the same way. When we encountered true diversity, we did not know how to handle it. Humanity taught us that strength comes not from unity of thought, but from unity of purpose despite diversity of method. The chaos we feared became the creativity we needed. The question now is not how to control species like humanity, but how to learn from them, how to embrace the beautiful disorder that drives innovation and growth. Ambassador. Watson stood before the council one last time to deliver humanity's final statement on their role in galactic society. You called us a weapon, she said. We became your partners. You feared our chaos. We shared our creativity. You wanted us to follow your rules. We helped you write new ones. She looked around the chamber at representatives from dozens of species, many of whom had once voted to contain humanity. The weapon called human chooses its own battles now, and we choose to fight for a galaxy where every species can be different, strange, and wonderful in their own way. The universe is vast and full of surprises. Together we will be ready for all of them. Outside the council chambers, human laughter mixed with alien music drifted through the streets of the capital city. Children from a dozen worlds played games that would not exist without both human creativity and alien wisdom. The galaxy had asked for a weapon to save them from their enemies. What they received was something far more dangerous and far more wonderful. They received teachers who specialized in turning order into beautiful chaos, and chaos into strength. The weapon called human had chosen to become something better than a weapon. They had become the galaxy's hope for a future that would never be boring. And in the deep space beyond the edge of known civilization, exploration ships crewed by humans and aliens continued their search for new forms of wonderful chaos among the stars.